going to shift from one finale to another with the last game in the NFL regular season, AFC East Championship, Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins. If you were watching the game and you weren't paying attention to the colors on the field, you might have noticed that there were a lot of Bills fans down there. And maybe not all those good vibes helped out with the Bills getting this one 21-14. They win the division. Improbable streak they had to end the season. They end up finishing with the same record as Miami, get the tiebreaker from sweeping them. They go to number 2. Miami falls down to number 6, and they'll be on the road for presumably the entire playoffs.
Yeah, this is obviously I talked about my support for the Dolphins. Yeah, this one sucks. This is a hard way for it to conclude, though. We just talked before we recorded that maybe it works out better since you don't have to play the Bills back to back in Hard Rock. I mean, even if you get the first one, you probably end up losing that second one, and that one would be the more meaningful one. It's not so great to have to go to Arrowhead either. But either way, we'll dial that back and talk about this game. Bills cap off an amazing win streak to end the season. They lost to the Eagles, and they and the Eagles went on two completely different trajectories. They both ended up finishing with the same record, even though they were miles apart from that game. And the Bills ended up as the 2 seed from that. And the Eagles kind of were in the same scenario where they were kind of duking it out with their own divisional rival. The Bills overcame theirs, and the Eagles did not. So let's see how the Bills did. Josh Allen, Mr. January himself, went 30 for 38, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, he had 2 interceptions. It's just going to happen. As good of a game as he might play, he's going to throw at least one. He did lead the game in rushing with 67 yards, though. Pretty big for him. I mean, he's a great runner, but when you've got James Cook and Leonard Fournette, it can be kind of tough to outpace them. He did that, but they also had good games. Cook had 36 yards, and Fournette had 20 yards. The Bills' rushing game was pretty good, but that passing game, obviously, Allen has 360 yards. It was pretty impressive. That passing game was led by Khalil Shakir and Stephon Diggs. Shakir had 105 yards. Diggs had 87. Dalton Kincaid also came in and got 84 yards. And then Trent Sherfield and Dawson Knox were the 2 who brought in the 2 touchdowns. Sherfield was a very masterful toe tap at the edge of the end zone. I mean, just a beautiful catch. Great play for him. Josh Allen did also fumble, adding to his little turnover soup in this one. Didn't matter, they still won. Christian Binford and Taylor Rapp picked off Tua. Taylor Rapp had a game-sealing interception, and it was we'll get to that when we go back to, we do our more of a play-by-play analysis here in a few minutes, but it was a little mind-boggling. Not that Taylor Rapp got the interception, that Tua threw it straight to him. Otherwise, the Bills had Deontay Hardy get a 96-yard punt return touchdown, and that was kind of a momentum shifter. The Dolphins were leading at halftime. They come out of halftime. They're not able to score. Then this happens. They get that 96-yard punt return, and the Dolphins did not do anything after. That was it. The Bills tied up the game with that one and then scored later on. So that was just the 96-yard punt return touchdown just felt like it shifted the air towards the Bills. Now, for the Dolphins, I hate to call them this, but Tua turned the ball over, did come out in full effect. I hate to use that nickname on him, but it was here. 17 for 27, 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, as I mentioned. One of them was game-ending. That was it for the Dolphins, and that was this one. In the absence of Raheem Mostert, again, Devon Achane led the rushing game with 56 yards, got himself a touchdown. Jeff Wilson had a pretty good game with 45 yards. Nothing really to be upset about with the Dolphins' run game there. The air game, though, in the absence of Jalen Waddle, ended up just being Tyreek Hill. He got himself 82 yards and a touchdown, leading the team. After that, there's nothing really notable for the Dolphins' passing game. Durham Smythe is second with 30 yards. Obviously, he and Tua have had a pretty good connection this season as a tight end, but being second on the team in receiving and being only 30 yards is not super amazing. Dolphins are going to really want both Mostert and Waddle back for the playoffs. I think, obviously there's a lot of talent on that offense, but a lot of that comes from defenses not really knowing exactly who to focus enough energy on. And when you don't have Waddle in, they can do a lot more to Tyreek or just let Tyreek go and everyone else not go. Without Mostert, you kind of know it's going to be Achane. Wilson was able to get a little bit going in this one, but I think they kind of fall apart and don't know how to run some offensive schemes when they don't have as much confusion going on for the defense. Anyways, Christian Wilkins was the one who recovered the Josh Allen fumble, and then Eli Apple and Deshaun Elliott were able to pick off Josh Allen, but Eli Apple could have taken a touchback, ended up running it out to get 8 yards, and that ended up not being super helpful for the Dolphins either. I mean, as much as I'd be happy to say that, yeah, Eli Apple did a good thing, he was not able to keep it 100% good as he it could have just taken the 25-yard starting point instead of running out for 8 yards and getting rocked and and losing essentially, at 20 yards. So anyway, this was a good game, despite all the turnovers. That might be what made it good. It was competitive pretty much the whole time. The Bills did pile on 14 points in the fourth quarter, but it felt like a struggle. It was 0-0 at the end of the first quarter. Then it was 14-7 halftime, leading for the Dolphins. Nothing happened in the third quarter. Bills put up that 14 points to win in the fourth. It was a good game, but it felt like a struggle game. Every turnover felt like it had a lot of weight. And this was obviously the NFL regular season finale, aptly scheduled to be so. To add the most drama into the Bills thing. Unfortunately, for all that drama, the Jaguars had lost earlier in the day, so the Bills had actually already clinched a spot one way or the other because of that Jaguars loss. There's still drama, of course, and do they end up as the 6th seed or do they end up as the division leader? So they still had a lot of stuff kind of riding on this game, but they clearly were hoping to schedule it. Probably assuming the Jaguars win, and then you have Pittsburgh and Buffalo kind of up in the air about who gets where, and that did not occur because the Jaguars lost. So hours before the Bills even took a snap, we knew that they would, one way or the other, be in the playoffs along with the Pittsburgh Steelers, led by Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, obviously for NFL, the best case scenario probably would have been Jags winning, and you don't have that scenario where you already know Steelers Bills are going to get in. It's just a matter of who wins that division, that the seeding there and everything. Honestly, if there's ever a game that should have ended in a tie, I think it would have been this one. I mean, the best example, first drive for both teams, interception. I mean, perfect. Miami didn't get too far down the field before they threw a pick. On the other hand, Buffalo got all the way down the field. They had a 3rd and goal, and then that's when Eli Apple got that pick, like you mentioned. And he fell and he got up, and I guess he was. I don't know if he meant to run out of bounds or if he was just running that direction, or if he just got disoriented or what. I'm not really sure, but he just got up and he just bolted towards the sideline. He was like, I'm just gonna get out of here as fast as I can. Obviously, not the greatest field position there. Now you're all the way backed up at the 3 to start that drive. So not fantastic. So this game, this was something. The Bills, honestly, I didn't think that they would be able to just go on the run that they did, but they've for the most part they played exceptional football over that stretch. You can go back to maybe the New England game, not like the greatest or anything, but for the most part they played really good football over that stretch. James Cook was a big part of that, especially in Dallas. Not as big a part of it in this one. Josh Allen, we're kind of going back to those days of the past few seasons where every time we do a Bills video, Josh Allen is leading the Bills in rushing with 30 something yards, something like that. He has 67 here, but running game for either team, wasn't really hitting tonight for sure. That night, I should say. Whatever Raheem Mostert can do to get back in, they're going to need him against the Chiefs. And whatever Jalen Waddle can do to get back in, they're absolutely going to need him as well. Because like you said, I mean, the offense, Achane and Jeff Wilson, they're good. But I think having Raheem Mostert in there makes a huge difference. Having Jalen Waddle in there makes a huge difference. And definitely would have made a huge difference in this one, I think, having your top weapons or one of your top 2 weapons at receiver and then your top weapon at running back. So I think obviously that contributes to it. That's pretty obvious there. But the punt return, like you said, I think that is kind of, where things turn, because the Dolphins, they had just gotten that fumble because Bills were driving all the way down the field. They got almost into the red zone in the third quarter. They still were only down 7 points at that point. They fumble on that 3rd down. Josh Allen turns it over for the 3rd time that day. And then it finally seems like, okay, all these turnovers for Josh Allen is going to catch up to him. And this one, they can't do anything on the next drive. And then punt return for a touchdown, and it's like I literally said out loud, like, you got to be kidding me, because that right there, that changed the game. Miami, like you said, they didn't do anything for the rest of the game. Punt, interception, and even the drive right before that last drive from Miami, where Josh Allen, um, they he ran it up the middle, tried to get it up, get a first down on 4th and 1, couldn't do it. Turnover on downs. Miami is in a lot better position now. You're only at like your own 40-ish. 2-minute drill to get down the field, get a touchdown, tie it. But nothing over the last, few drives before that really gave me any indication that they were really capable of it. And then, like you mentioned, pretty boneheaded pass there at the end for Tua to throw an interception. And the origin of that nickname is insanely hilarious to me, because it's like the man won a championship coming in at halftime the year before for Jalen Hurts, led his team to another championship appearance. And then when you throw 2 picks against a clearly better team in Clemson that year, you get called to turn the ball over for the rest of your life. I mean, it's amazing how sports works. But he earned the name in this one, because I mean, they were the first pick obviously didn't really make much of a difference because they got another one right after it. But throwing a pick to steal the game, the picks he had last week, not really good. So we were talking about this before the video, before I pass it back. It's like, I don't really know who the heck to pick in this Miami Chiefs game. It's 2 teams that I don't know what they really are anymore. Miami, I don't know if they actually beat a team over 500 this year. Like, I have to go back and look. I don't know if they did. So that's, besides Dallas, of course, outside of the Dallas game, I don't remember if they beat one over 500. So then you got the Chiefs on the other side. It's like, I don't want to say these teams are frauds, but I mean, you got 2 teams that are like, maybe that makes for a good matchup. You still got offensive guys, Travis Kelce, even though it's a quote unquote down year, you know, Patrick Mahomes is still there. Tua, if he's not throwing picks, he's still pretty good. You got weapons on offense on both sides. I just don't know who the heck you pick in this game. So maybe on the other hand, like you said, maybe it was better for them not to play Buffalo for the second time in 2 weeks, obviously. So yeah, this one, we were talking about, this one has to be frustrating for him regardless, because you go from being possibly you could have gotten a number 1 seed to now you're down at 6. And unless by some way the Steelers are the last team remaining besides the Dolphins, you're not playing at home again for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and that's gonna sting a lot. I mean, you lose some big ones to the Ravens and Bills to end the season. But ultimately, you lose the division because you lost that Titans game. And even if you lost to the Bills in this one, that Titans, if you had the Titans win, you'd have one more win, and you'd hold on by a thread. Now that might be horrifying to then have to play the Bills immediately again, even if you're in Miami. But now they have to go on the road. They have to go into Arrowhead, which is just not a great place to be. They're 7-2 at home, so most of their losses came away. But yeah, this is going to be something with these 2 teams playing in this. I mean, the Dolphins have had a pretty consistent offense, except for when they decide to start turning it over. The Chiefs have not had a super consistent offense, but they did already beat the Dolphins this year. The Dolphins really only beat the Cowboys, I believe, was their only win above 500. They lost to the Chiefs. They lost to the Bills both times. They lost to the Ravens. They beat a Raiders team who were 500 at the time, and they sent them to be below 500 when they beat them. But I don't think that really counts. So it's going to be something to see this game. The Bills probably get a more favorable matchup heading forward and getting to play the Steelers. That's who they matched up with, right? Yeah. They get a pretty wounded Steelers team. So they'll I say pretty wounded. They're missing TJ Watt, which I think is going to be
Right.
pretty big. But so I mean, the Bills definitely fought their way back to a pretty favorable spot here. But these 2 teams are definitely going to be interesting to see in the playoffs. I mean, the Bills have been one of the more dangerous teams in the hunt the whole time. They get up and secure the 2 seed for themselves. That's going to be super big. We'll obviously cover playoffs more in depth in the future, but the Dolphins have got to clean up the turnovers. They're really going to want Rodney Mostert and Jalen Waddle to come back to add some more dynamic kind of playmaking against these defenses. You don't want to just say, well, we know it's going to be H.N. or Wilson, and we know they're going to send it to Waddle or to Hill. You kind of want to have all of them to go together. Tua's got to make some better decisions. Throwing to Chase Claypool in double coverage with your not season, but your AFC East title on the line is pretty crazy. It's a weird decision when when they announced that Claypool had been picked up by the Dolphins. I would have not expected it to culminate here, but that's where we got to. I guess that's just one of the unfortunate things about Waddle being out. Claypool, obviously has had some rough moments in the NFL. That one I don't know if I'll fully put on him. He was double covered and Tua just threw it straight to Taylor Rapp. But it's just not the best decision that could have been made in that scenario. And you were kind of moving down the field too. Obviously, you're fighting for it to get to tie the game and send it to overtime there. But they were, for the first time in like the whole second half, actually moving the ball a little bit. And then he throws a pick straight to Taylor Rapp. Josh Allen gives you 3 turnovers, and you're not able to capitalize on it. This game, there's a lot to take out of it that's not good for Miami, knowing that now we're on the road. We threw away a 3-turnover Josh Allen game, and he still allowed him to have a 360-yard bomb performance. So yeah, I don't know if it's panic time because you get the kind of a wonky Chiefs team that you barely lost to the first time, and you were overseas when that happened. But it might be close to a little bit of a panic, and we've got to change the way we're doing things. We can't just keep being complacent. And they keep opening. Obviously, not in this game. They threw a pick immediately. But a lot of these games, they start out looking good against their opponent, and then it just falls apart super quickly. Happening against the Ravens, happening against the Bills the first time. So Dolphins have got to get it together. For the Bills, though, this is super positive. There's not many negatives, I think. You had a 3-turnover game from Josh Allen, and you were able to pull out a win. You stole the division from Miami in Miami, so that's got to be a good feeling as a division rival. And you get to be matched up with the Steelers, who are tough, but who you probably have a pretty good matchup against on all facets and are going to be able to move forward there. And you get to make them come to Buffalo. So not that there would be any world this year where anyone would go to Pittsburgh for the playoffs. That just wasn't going to happen this season. But I think the Bills have a lot to come away with. It's super positive in this one, especially like I think you kind of touched on it. Josh Allen leads the team in rushing, but it's with 67 yards. It's not like the usual like 30 or 25 yard that he leads with. James Cook and Leonard Fournette are still able to put on some useful yards for this Bills team. So a lot to take away for the Bills here that is positive heading into a playoff matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and just to finish, like you said, if you look at this game in that sense, like, hey, Josh Allen, we threw 2 picks, had the fumble. We had multiple opportunities to throw this game away, and we still won against a team that, again, is only beaten really Dallas this year, but it's still a team that's good. You can take that away and say, hey, we can still win in spite of these issues. But if you think you're going to go up against, like, I don't know, Baltimore and have these issues and win the game in Baltimore, in, let's say, a hypothetical AFC Championship game, not going to happen. If they did play the Chiefs, that's going to be at home for them. So, the only away game they would play would be obviously Super Bowl or Ravens game. So, in that sense, like, hey, you had these issues, which you still won, but this is not something that you want to just keep doing over and over. And that run game is definitely going to have to try it. You're going to have to come back with that running game at some point because you're just not going to be able to win having, based off of what we see in the past few weeks, you're not going to be able to win not really having James Cook involved the way he was and turn the ball over like this against a team that is going to play better in a team like Baltimore. On the flip side for the Dolphins, again, maybe it is, good that they're playing the Chiefs. Like, my main concern is, you still got Patrick Mahomes on the other side. In the playoffs at home, they simply don't lose. And I don't remember. I'm pretty sure the only away game they've played in the playoffs would be, the Super Bowl. So, like, that's still a thing for the Chiefs right now. So, I think it's just a matter of, you look back to that first game again, mistakes at the end there, when they could have came back against the Chiefs over in Germany. It's just these mistakes. Once you get to the playoffs, these mistakes make a whole lot more difference than they would in the regular season. And an interception early in the game, like you said, didn't really hurt you, but a dumb play at the end ends your season. So, yeah, we're going to talk about these games later this week, but we're real excited for playoff football finally getting here.